Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Pittsburgh Sportsline. Welcome to our show. It's a Valentine's Day special, and we forgot the candy, the flowers, and everything else. So we hope you enjoy the show. We have some great topics here. We got Chip Hayner with us. We got Smokin' Jim Frazier, and of course, Al Levine, the talking machine. And we're going to start off with Smokin' Jim. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks, Al. I'll be real quick. You know, what's on my mind is Woodland Hills High School is one of the most overrated high schools in the history of southwestern Pennsylvania. Yeah, they got more NFL players in the NFL than any other school in the country, but most of them are riding the bench. The one player that I did have some respect for, Rob Gronkowski, after the Super Bowl where he had a high ankle sprain, he's out on the dance floor at a nightclub with his shirt off, jumping around more than MC Hammer, the Waka Flocka. Listen, get it right, Woodland Hills. It's a shame that Tom Brady's wife takes the laws harder than most of the players on New England.
Wow. Smokin' Jim, you never cease to amaze me. And I saw the same video and everything else. We'll talk some more about that, but I can see why that's on your mind there. All right, Chip Hayner, what's on your mind, buddy?
Well, what's on my mind tonight is we're right on the cusp of the baseball season. And something that I think we might be able to strike up a little bit of a debate about tonight is this year is the 40th anniversary of a rule that separated the leagues. The designated hitter rule, which is applied in the American League, and the National League, which they call the Old League, it does not have a designated hitter, and the pitchers must bat. And, the debate goes, which would you prefer to see in Major League Baseball? Would you prefer to see a designated hitter or no designated hitter? And there's validity on both sides of the argument, and it would be interesting to see what my colleagues here have to say about that, and if anybody's willing to call in and ask us about that. I'd like to stir up some debate about that today, but that's what's on my mind.
Chip, I love your subject there. We'll get to that in a few minutes, but again, our phone number, 412-831-3304. And I'll be talking about that shortly. But first, I want to give you a little update on Mike. Mike's having some health issues with sugar and a few other things. His, rate's up real high, and he's going to be going back to the VA to get checked out again. So all of you guys that watch him on YouTube or even watch him live, if you want to put him in your prayers, he's not a big-time guy about praying, but I'd rather have God work on his side a little bit too. He is a decorated veteran, Navy captain from Desert Storm, so that's one thing that's on my mind, so let's handle that. The other thing is I've had 2 funerals in 2 weeks, and this one was my girlfriend's dad, Frank LeBans. He actually lived to be 84 years old. He actually took my dad and my mom and myself when I was 18 years old out to the Meadows, and he used to gamble a little bit, and all of you guys at the Post-Gazette, you know how Frank was in the late-night poker games at the Post-Gazette when we were working, of course, since you guys may bring up a little point there. But the paper did get out. Just so you know, the paper always got out. And this was back quite a long time ago when the Post-Gazette was booming and making a lot of money. And he taught me how to bet the horses, and he was such a slick guy that he never told me who was going to win because it's pari-mutuel betting. And what that means is we're all betting against each other. So he didn't want to knock the odds down. So I do want to give a shout out to all his family, my girlfriend Janice, her twin sisters Karen and Sharon, Lauren, and baby Frank LeBans, who I'm going to talk a little bit about later on, that he knows Smokin' Jim Frazier because he's a Gateway graduate. And we'll get into that in a couple minutes also. And since this is an infomercial show in Bethel Park, I'll put a couple other shout outs to, I have another fan called The Dude. He lives in Bethel Park, and he knows who he is. We won't use his name. And I want to thank Bruce Gradkowski and Gene Malerbo for stopping out and giving me a picture of Libby, Stanley Schultz, who's 90 years old, and a picture of my dad back from 1989. So thanks, guys. I appreciate that. And then Eli, one of the electricians over in our Northside plant, thanks for going on the computer and promoting our show. So if you want to do it again this week when it goes on YouTube again, thank you very much. And we'll get into some other guys later on. But I did want to bring up a point about Smokin' Jim. I run into Frank LeBans, who's a pretty nice sized guy, about 6'2" or so, and he has a friend of his, Terry Smith. Okay. Now I said, do you remember a running back at Gateway? And they go, this guy was one of the fastest guys that we ever met. And I said, well, what's his name? And they go, Jim Frazier. And they were a year younger than you. So now I know about how old you are, and I won't reveal that on camera.
Thank you, sir.
And they said he was quite the running back in his day there. So they do remember that. And this Terry Smith isn't the coach at Gateway at this time. He's a little shorter and lighter. So I'll leave it at that. But that's on my mind. We'll get in some of these discussions. And I appreciate all of you that are watching. If you want to go, watch our show on YouTube, you can do that. Just go to YouTube, then type in Pittsburgh Sportsline. Or you can put in Al Levine, and you'll get to see Andy Sebastian on our second show. And that's how you do it. And then you see Chip Hayner now. We don't have his name in there, but go to Pittsburgh Sportsline, and you always see one of the best, Smoking Jim Frazier. And we'll kick it off, guys, with this baseball. You got me fired up because I say get rid of the designated hitter. I'm a traditional type of guy, and I think you keep some of these guys in their careers that shouldn't be there anymore because they can't bend over to even pick up a ball. They can't play a position. But they come out and hit home runs, and they can still hit the ball.
And that's a very valid point. And that was one of my one of my things with the designated hitter rule in the American League. If you notice, all the big money ball players are going to the American League, and you could sign somebody like Prince Fielder for 9 years, or you could sign Albert Pujols for 10 years, who really his production in the last 3 years has gone down by steps. Okay, his best years, I believe, are behind him already, but, and he gets too slow to play in the field, they can still keep his bat in the lineup, and the guy, if he can't do anything else, he can hit the cover off the ball.
Right.
Prince Fielder, I don't see him being somebody that's going to, with the weight problems that he has, that's going to be a fielding asset for much longer, but Detroit will be able to use his bat in the lineup. And they say that, in the American League, you're seeing more offense, and I think it takes a lot of the skill out of the manager's ability to control the game by having the designated hitter. In the National League,
I agree with you. And part of the problem is these pitchers, they get away from even hitting the ball. Now, what's part of baseball? Right? You got to get out there and at least try to hit or learn how to bunt.
Well, and the thing I like about the National League and the batting your pitchers is, you have to make moves and you have to look in advance of the coming inning. If you're going to pull a pitcher, or if you can make moves for players in the field, based on, okay, when is the pitcher batting? So he's up second in the bottom of this inning,
Right.
I can make a double switch or something like that. And it makes it so that the manager has more of an impact on the game. And I personally, I like the way they do things in the National League. I think they should get rid of the designated hitter, but, there's arguments for it because, putting runs on the board puts fannies in the seat.
Right. Well, now that we're past the steroid era and all these other things, then you won't have these guys, cheating a little bit and keeping them in the game a little longer. So maybe that would eliminate that, too, if you got rid of that designated hitter.
Well, and here's another part of the problem with the designated hitter rule is that the way that Bud Selig's got the Major League Baseball going right now, with interleague play is going to start happening year-round instead of just for the months of June and early July. So, you're going to have, when you play in a National League park, you play under National League rules.
Right.
You play in American League park. And, I think that the National League teams are going to be at a disadvantage because they don't stock their teams based on the same criteria that an American League team does. So that's why I think they should come to a decision and either, do it across the board or not do it. My vote would be to eliminate the designated hitter.
Well, since we got a little pause here, Smoking Jim, what do you have any opinion on this thing, or what do you think about it?
Well, I always have an opinion. I was trying to stay out of baseball, but, I think that...
I brought you right in.
I hate to disagree with Chip because he's he's forgotten more about baseball than I ever know. But the one thing that I will say is that you have to get away from baseball now is a dying sport. and you have to do something to bring it back. And the traditional guys who love baseball, like yourself, Al, and Chip, you're always going to watch, but now you're going to have to expand if you want to expand that market. And that's one of the things. I think the designated hitter will do it, bring the steroids and juice baseballs back. You have to, man. I'm telling you, there's more people now. There's more females now playing softball. It's a very interesting sport. So you got a crowd now, a whole nother generation that would fall in love with baseball, but you're going to have to expand some things. You're going to have to get away from tradition. You're going to have to do some things. Maybe pull one guy out of the outfield, make him sit in a penalty box like hockey does to get more runs in baseball. But you have to do something, because baseball used to be the number one. 50 years ago, baseball was the number one sport in the country, right up there with boxing, and both of those sports are dying. And so you have to start thinking outside the box to get people more interested in it.
Well, that's that absolutely is food for thought, and and as baseball goes, a lot of people have said that the quality of baseball has deteriorated as they've expanded because a lot of guys are making it to the major leagues that really are only AAA players, and they're on major league rosters because there are teams, but I do believe that something's got to be done. I personally, I'm a strategist. I've got my opinion and I respect yours, and that's what makes the world go round. But
hold it, Smoking Jimmy. That's a nice opinion, but we had a guy, Bill Veck, way back in the years, that he had midgets in the game. He had all kind of different things. You had guys,
Eddie Goodell.
Yeah, you had guys that did all of these things. So, I don't know if you can bring it back, but you might be able to tweak some of this stuff. I like to tweak. I'm not like Rooney where he wants to tweak Big Ben, but I think you could tweak baseball to move it up a little bit, have it a little more exciting, because I love going to a baseball game. But I see people that, like Smoking Jim and Mike, when he's healthy, they like to go and eat at the game. They don't even know what inning it is. They're out there eating, and they go, this is a hell of a place because look at the scenery out there. And then, I hate to differ with my man there because I got his autograph, but I have an issue with some of that. They had clowns at games. They had an ephus pitch. They threw an ephus pitch 30 feet in the air.
Well, in 2008, 2009, and 2010, the reason I went down to the games was for the food. Last year it was the baseball, but to
only
speak
for
to
100 games though.
Yeah, but you know what? I still went. I still went to the game on 9/11. I was at the Pirate game. I didn't stay home and watch the Steeler game. It was a very rousing tribute to the American people and the people that lost their lives on 9/11. And I felt honored to be there. And it was a packed crowd. It was a nice Sunday afternoon. But to speak to Jim about something that they need to do to put some energy back into the game. Well, I think what they need to do is, if you ever watch a game, every time the batter takes a pitch, he jumps out of he steps out of the batter's box and he takes his gloves and he goes back and forth and he itches himself and he adjusts himself. And, the man should, the ball should be thrown right back to the pitcher and the next pitch should come, And if you watch when the games are played, they got the playoffs, a baseball game starts at 8:30, people got to get up and go to work the next day and it's 12:30, 1:45, and they're in the sixth inning, Hold
it, why aren't we in charge?
Those are things that could be done to make the game more exciting.
Why aren't we in charge of this?
Dead time, in the game. And I think those are some things that they could do. But, this is the guy's chance to make, their money by getting, this is my moment on TV. I'm going to milk every second of it I can. So.
Well, some of it's that. But then if we talk about Pittsburgh, what can we do with our team? If we change all these rules, we're trying to play by the rules and not doing very well. Will that help or hurt us?
Would you guys, before we go there, would you sign a pitcher from the Yankees?
I would.
I would, and here's the reason why. I had a spirited conversation about this on Sunday morning with a friend of mine while we were having breakfast, and he was totally against the Pirates making an attempt to get him. And I think if the Pirates can get him at the price that they want, and there's some negotiation going on right now. A.J. Burnett, I did some looking up on his stats. He's been in the major leagues 13 years. Over his career, he has averaged 214 innings a season, okay? And last year he was at 11-11, and 3 years ago he was 18-10 for the Yankees, which is, that's an excellent record. But, here is a starting pitcher that can eat up innings. And I tell you right now, I don't think the Pirates had any pitcher that got close to pitching 200 innings last year, which was their biggest fault as the year went on. They burned out their bullpen. The arms got tired. And I think he could be a stopgap measure until the younger talent that we have in the minor league system can develop without having to mortgage our future. For somebody that, you're getting him for a year or two, and I think it would make sense if we can do it without giving up too many prospects.
Well, the nice part about it is maybe for about $8 million in Garrett Jones, we can get it and they'll eat the rest of his salary. But the problem is you may have a guy that he's been out of control at times, the way he acts and temper-wise and everything else, and you don't know. The nice thing about it is he used to be at 100 miles per hour roughly. Now he's down in the low 90s. Consistently, and even gets to the mid-90s, so that would help. We don't have a true strikeout pitcher. So if we have a guy that can throw strikes and get the guys out, that's a key thing. Your infield can rest a little bit, because look at some of the players and the talent we have. They're always on edge. They have to make a call, make a play, make these decisions. If you're striking out a few guys, that helps. It buys you some time. So I think it would be a good move. I don't know why they don't work it out.
If we could get us started that we could consistently get 6 1/3, 6 2/3 innings out of every time he goes out, I think that only is going to help the team. But it remains to be seen because the Yankees are now they're trying to get prospects, and you can pay less money if we give us more prospects, or if you don't want to give us prospects, we'll assume less of his contract and you have to. So we're still the front runner for it as far as everything I read today on the internet.
But would he want to come here? That's the thing. And then what would his attitude be? But we can only speculate on it. I'd like to see it happen because I do have a bet with Chip and Smoke and Jim that they don't get over 500 this year just because it'll be another world record of 20 years in a row.
Well, I'm with you on that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I
forgot.
I'm gonna ride the Pirates bandwagon, and I'm setting myself up for a lot of abuse. But that's okay. I got
good
thick
luck
skin
to you.
and I can take it. I can take it. But I just, I've been a Pirate fan all my life, and I loved what I saw last year. And I think they've got the right man managing the team right now, and I think he's going to be able to take care of anybody that might have an attitude problem.
Well, I'm hopeful, and I still am a Pirate fan, but I'm a disgruntled Pirate fan. And we're going to switch subjects because with all this funeral stuff, I heard something about Lynn Mania.
Wow.
And I saw some statistics in between, all these things going on, that he had more points in 4 games than Shaq, Michael Jordan, and I think Kobe Bryant in their first 4 games in the league. And here's a kid that really was in the minor league basketball league, whatever that even is, and he went to Harvard, so he's obviously a smart guy.
He's an Ivy League.
And so here he is scoring points like this. And now they expect him to do it. What happens when the stars come back in here? Carmelo and
he's more popular. He's a more popular Asian professional athlete than Hines Ward's. Another knock against poor Hines.
I was going to bring that up later.
But I tell you what, this guy is. He's the real deal. He can get to the hole. He's 6'3". He's a guy that got an opportunity, took advantage of it. Reminds me a little bit about like Nash.
Okay.
He can. Only difference is, Nash has been consistent over a 2-time MVP.
Right.
But Nash can't get to the rack like this kid can.
Right.
And the one thing is, I think that it's going to be even better when Carmelo Anthony and those guys come back. Even though Carmelo doesn't give the ball up, this guy distributes the ball. He handles it, man. He can create some things.
You think it'll open it up for him on some other things?
I think it'll open it up.
And I'm interested to see what happens when Carmelo Anthony and Stoudemire come back, because if they can learn to play, in conjunction with one another instead of, you touched on the fact Carmelo has always been the center of the world on whatever team that he's been on, and he's going to have to learn that, let the point guard run the offense and you do your bit. And I think it could be the trio that could put New York back on the map as far as basketball.
You mean a new dream team?
Oh,
Not Miami. I was betting on Miami this year.
I'm counting on them to fizzle again.
Okay.
Because LeBron James kind of reminds me of Tony Romo in a way. He just seems to fizzle when the pressure's on. He doesn't show up in the fourth quarter, and that's not something that you can just overnight
Hold it.
change.
I got to interrupt you. One of my predictions was LeBron could come through this year. And he's playing a nice game this year so far. We have to see the postseason.
He already got his playoff beard.
Well, it's nice to get it early. You're right.
But we shall
he's
see
playing well.
We shall see how the season plays out, because this year the NBA with the shortened season,
Right.
anything can happen. We'll just have to see how it plays out.
Okay, well, since we're running around here, Smoking Jim Frazier brought up another key topic for us Steeler fans and Pittsburgh guys. What do you think about a guy who has done well for a team for years? Do the Steelers owe him anything? Because some say they do, some say they don't. I personally feel when he had those contract talks in 2005, it was about business. And he got a nice contract, made millions of dollars. Now they're saying maybe he doesn't fit in the system. So what do they owe him? Do they owe him a chance to sign at $880,000 for the year? Because I heard that's what the minimum salary would be. Or do they just say, we got to let you go because you'll be, like Smoking Jim says, fifth, sixth receiver? Or maybe not even that.
Well, I'd have cut him last year.
Okay, well,
there's
we
no
know
way.
how you are, Emperor.
Well, there's no way. Yeah, there's no way. Heinz who? That's how Chuck Norris would say, Heinz who.
Right.
There's
Get
no
on with
way.
your life's work, son.
Yeah. There's no way Heinz Ward would have been on my team last year. Listen, this is a guy. Everybody talks about, Heinz Ward, you can get him for the league minimum. Heinz Ward's not going to take the league minimum. He thinks he can still play. When Heinz Ward is talking about restructuring this contract, how can you restructure a contract when you got 1 year left on your deal? You're talking about a new deal where you would take less money, maybe $2 or $3 million a year, and sign for a 2-year deal. Listen, Heinz Ward is slowing down the fast break, the new money offense, the new money receivers. He's slowing those guys down. He's old. They owe him nothing. He would never even gotten his 1,000 catches with me. I mean, Heinz Ward had a great career. He was never a guy that they really thought was going to be a dominant receiver. He never was the top receiver in the league. He did good. It was a good fit for him and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now you cut Heinz Ward. Listen, he don't get along with the quarterback. Heinz Ward was the only player on the Steeler team that did not go to Ben's wedding. They don't like each other. There's no chemistry. They hate one another. Ben does not want to throw him the football
How do you
anymore.
really feel, Jim?
Yeah, so it's time to get rid of Heinz Ward, and maybe he'll end up like Marty Dawson down the line and get into the Hall of Fame.
Whoa.
Well, there's some pretty strong opinions that Jim has, and here's a question that I think of, because I looked at the couple of guys that the Steelers just released the past week, and they kept Arnaz Battle on the roster all year, and he held a roster spot.
Wow! And
this is what I'm thinking. If you could get Heinz Ward, even though he is at the end of his career, you've got a veteran possession receiver, that's somebody that's not afraid to go across the middle. Do you think he would be worth more for you than to keep Arnaz Battle, who did absolutely nothing besides collect paychecks the whole time he was here? I know right now the Steelers really don't owe him anything. They've paid him well for what he's done, and they've got good production out of him. I personally think, it wouldn't be such a terrible thing, because there's a lot of, worse ills with the Steelers than keeping or getting rid of Heinz Ward. But, we are all entitled to our opinions. And, I personally, and I'd love to see him finish his career here in Pittsburgh. But, that may not happen. But that's just the way I think.
Hey, I appreciate both of your opinions there. And you know where I stand on there. He's at the end of the career. If he doesn't fit into the system, look, you have a new offensive coordinator who hasn't spoken to Big Ben yet, right? I mean, so what's going on with that type of thing? What do you guys think about the new coordinator here and making a statement that he's happy to be here? And
well, again, I want to see what he brings to the table. Right now, we can speculate all we want. You know, he needs to roll his sleeves up, get into doing his job, looking at the offense. And I think he's got a bigger problem than how he's going to mesh with Ben. Is like what's he going to do with the running attack this year? You know, because of the problems that we know that we've had with the offensive line. Now we find out that Rashard Mendenhall may not be able to play next year with the ACL surgery that he's had. So, you know, that's got to change the way you think going into the draft. And this is a question I wanted to ask Jim, being the draft guru that he is. I mean, where we're going to be drafting, you know, will we be able to find an impact back in the first round this year?
Well, let me just finish Al's question on Haley and Ben.
Right.
One of my best friends is Bob Haley, who is Todd Haley's uncle and Dick Haley's brother, and a well-respected defensive coordinator in college football for many, many years. And there's been many a days, man, we had to fight our way at nightclubs, not because we got in a fight inside.
Okay.
It's because all the Haleys dress like hobos that are under a bridge. So Bob Haley and Todd Haley is no exception. So Todd Haley's rolling up his sleeves a little bit too much. He needs to put on a suit and tie every once in a while, but he's just like Belichick, who looked like a bum playing golf this weekend at Pebble Beach with a hoodie. So that's what you're going to look for, Todd Haley. And I think that Todd Haley and Ben, is going to be some friction there because he's going to get in your face. And also he's going to get in Hines Ward's face if he's there. I don't know if Hines can take it. And I don't know if Todd Haley speaks Korean to talk to Hines' mom when he goes run in that direction. But, you know, now all of a sudden you're hearing that Haley didn't play football in high school, junior high, or midget league because he has some kind of back injury. He had a back injury with Todd Haley. He didn't want the rest of the players on Upper St. Clair to see that yellow streak that runs down the middle of the back. Anybody that plays golf, and he was a professional golfer, you can't play golf with a bad back. You can't swing a golf club violently like the pros do with a bad back. But to answer Chip's question is this. Don't forget, the Steelers got some pretty good running backs that bring some resume on their team. I don't know where they're picking in the first round. Now, you said I'm wearing the Alabama colors.
Yeah,
Trent Richardson's the best back that I've seen in a long time play college football, but he'll be long gone. Right. But if you look at it, you got you got the boy from Bowie State, Redmond, Red Zone Redmond, running the ball. Don't forget Dwyer, who had a 75, 80-yard touchdown run, is a 250-pound back, was great for Georgia Tech. And Clay, as a junior at Wisconsin, was the Big Ten Player of the Year. He's 250 pounds. He wears number 38 for the Steelers. So maybe with those three guys, and don't forget, you can get you a little small scat back, but with the offensive line being as poor as they are, it may be wise to go with a big back and bring in a full back and help those guys out, and you still can get your short passing game going with Heath Miller.
Well, Smoke and Jim, I may disagree with you on some points, but your information, you're throwing out names. You know I'm a name dropper. I love throwing the names out.
That's why I asked the question.
And Chip was like your setup guy. That was beautiful. He threw the little volleyball up, and you crushed that ball. And I love the talk about how they dress, because you got Ohio State with Alabama. I was looking over there.
I was trying to wear something I was trying to find Valentine.
And you did. And look at how I wore the Valentine. All I got is the red. I got the red face because they got this light on here. That's Aaron and Devin here. They got me like I got to tell the truth here or something. And they know I'm the talking machine.
I thought you hit the tanning bed.
No, look at it. It's getting a little hot in here. And I didn't even say anything controversial with you. But we're having a little fun there. And I do want to bring up something that since the Civic Arena, they're tearing it down. I don't know if you guys can get a picture of this. If you close in on it, it's actually a memento of the Civic Arena from the roof. And Devin, our main man in the control room, he doesn't like coming in front of the camera. He could have sat here with us, but that's how he is. And here's what he has. And look at that. That's a nice collectible gift. That'd be a nice Valentine's Day's over. It's too late to get it. maybe another day. But thanks a lot, Devin. You gave us a little point. Now we can talk some Penguins. You know how I move around. I'm stealing some of Mike's thunder that since he's not here, he always has props. My props are a little weak since it's borrowed, but we'll go to the Penguins here. And we have the Prophet here. I don't know if you guys are aware of the Prophet. We got Chip, the Prophet Hayner here. He predicted that you have to rest Fleury once in a while because you don't want to burn out a guy like that who's doing super. And I'm segueing in that Chip can tell you what happened this past weekend, which if you watch sports, you already know.
Well, last weekend we played Winnipeg on Saturday, and we won that game 8-5. Rested Fleury. Brent Johnson played a solid game on Sunday. We ended up with another 4-2 win, and we ended up taking 4 points out of the weekend, which right now, the Penguins, as well as they've been playing, they've got 69 points, and they're tied with Philadelphia for 4th place in the Eastern Conference. But if you look, there's only 7 points that separate 4th place from 8th place. And, if they do not continue to play as consistent as they have been, they could be on the outside looking in. A playoff spot for them, even though in our hearts, I believe that the Penguins are going to make the playoffs. They're going to go deep into them this year. They could be on the outside looking in. That wouldn't be outside of the realm of possibility. So, we have to gain perspective in every game that we can get 2 points out of. And I think it was a fine example this week because I think we kind of blew an opportunity the weekend before. Fleury played an amazing game against the Bruins and then fell flat the next day, against Toronto, I believe it was, gave up 3 goals.
But didn't he have like 23 straight games?
Well, yeah.
And that plays into what you're saying about there can be a little fatigue factor. But you do want to ride that strong horse, like I always bring up. So he did lose, and
then Jordan Stahl coming back was nothing but but another positive for the team because it gives them more depth in the center of the ice. So it looks like they're set for a nice run right now, and I really don't think that they need to do anything trade wise, but I could be wrong.
Well, that's what they're talking about. There's rumors on the different sports channels that maybe they'll get a defenseman that has experience because Dupre's like a rookie, and we could get some guys with more experience that might be out there to help steady the defense. Somebody that blocks shots, how the defensive men do that. There's some theory about maybe we need a couple guys to help out for our run.
Well, I tell you what, I think you do more detriment to the team when you try to take people out of the system and try to mold them into your system when you've got people that have been playing the system all year. And I think they've got all the talent really that they need, and if they can just consistently, play together, that I don't think it would be in their best interest to make a trade at this point. But I'm not a hockey GM, and I don't know. I don't see them in practice every day.
Right.
I just go by what I see on TV.
Well, I've been happy with what they're doing, and we're not hearing about Sid right now, so we'll see what happens with that, and they have some success. So.
Well, what is the status with Sid?
Well, I understand that he practiced with the team the other day, skated with them for about an hour and a half, but as far as being symptomatic or non-symptomatic, I don't know. And to be honest with you, I think it's kind of refreshing just to be able to talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins instead of Sidney Crosby. When he comes back, we can just blow up the airwaves and talk about, the second coming of or third coming of Sid. But, for right now, we've got to support the team that they're putting on the ice, and they're putting a good product on.
Second or third coming, Sid.
Yeah, well, Lemieux did that, so he's adding a little bit of humor. The Prophet's throwing out some of his things there, so we can appreciate that, no doubt about it. But we'll just see what happens then, because the trade deadlines will be out there where you can get these free agents.
So last week, we saw a different Pitt basketball team that had been playing very well for 2 or 3 weeks. And it seems like the wheels fell off that bus this past weekend. They lost 2 games that very easily they could have won. And I think their chances of making the NCAA tournament outside of winning the Big East are completely gone. And I don't think that they have a chance in the Big East tournament with teams like Syracuse and Louisville. That was a hell of a game that Syracuse and Louisville played last night.
Yeah, and with Pitt, I think sometimes I'm not a big Jamie Dixon fan, and although Jamie Dixon is a very knowledgeable basketball coach. I think sometimes Jamie Dixon suffers from still the college mania that he experienced his first start at TCU, where they went against Houston and Slamma-Jamma, and they put him in the 3 spot against Hakeem Olajuwon. So I think sometimes he still has nightmares about that. But Pitt, they can't do it every year. I think they got to win out to go to the NCAAs, and I think there's nothing wrong with going to the NIT, and I think that's where they're headed.
You've been a big promoter of that this whole season, so at least you're consistent there. I respect that. But it doesn't look good for them. Common sense has to come into play. The team's been inconsistent. They can't score when they need to, and they've been up in each of these games, like Chip's saying, where they could have won the game. All they have to do is hold a lead. They can't even do that.
No, their defense, last year, I was listening on the way over here. Last year, their defense had led the Big East in the amount of points they let their opponents score. And in the 4-game winning streak, their defense was playing on the same level that they were all of last year. And the last 2 games, obviously, the defense wasn't playing, and they weren't putting any shots down. And I'll tell you what, if the Pitt Panthers actually do end up making a postseason tournament other than the Big East, probably got to tip my hat to Jamie Dixon and say this is probably the best coaching job that he's done in the 10 years that he's been here, because I believe that the teams that he's had in the past have been much more talented than what he's got to deal with this year. So, I mean, I'd love to see them, pull off some magic, but I'm a realist, and I just, I don't see it being there.
I differ with Smoking Jim a little bit about Jamie Dixon. I actually think he's a pretty good coach. And that's, of course, my opinion. And he could have one of his best coaching jobs this year, but it'll be in a losing situation. And that's not always good for any program. And then you have to see if he can bounce back, because maybe all the Ben Howland techniques and players that he has, he'll have to get some of his own. And I just want to go back to Mike Tomlin. With all these things going on with the Steelers, what control does he have with any of this stuff? And this is more pointed towards Smoking Jim, because he's the guy that told us that Mike Tomlin might be a great guy, very intelligent man, great speaker, great motivator, but he's not controlling the staff. And the other question I have, it's a 2-part one. When is Big Ben supposed to talk to Art Rooney II? Since he put it out that way, and he also caused a little more controversy when he said he's heard good things and bad things about Todd Haley, and that he'll make his own decision after he meets him. Well, how long has Todd been the coach, and they haven't met yet? So just that in itself shows that we have something going on there.
Well, just to speak
and
about,
I threw a lot out there for you.
Just
I know you can handle it.
Just speak about Pitt basketball again. If Dante Taylor, who's getting blocked by the bottom of the rim lately, if he's a parade All-American, we're all parade All-Americans. But
no, McDonald's.
Well, McDonald's. That's even more prestigious.
Right, and I knew you'd appreciate that, McDonald's. And I have an issue with that too.
But, like I said, I take a lot of heat, especially during Black History Month, which is February, when I say anything negative about Mike Tomlin. And I don't mean to speak negatively about him. I'm just speaking the truth. This is a guy that inherited Bill Cowher's players, which is, he's done things that's never been done in the National Football League by a head coach. He's had to inherit the entire players. He had to inherit the entire coaching staff and the system. And don't forget that Art Rooney II did not want Mike Tomlin to be the head coach. He hired Russ Grimm to be the head coach. Now, Art Rooney II is stepping over Mike Tomlin to make decisions. You fire Bruce Arians, which a lot of people wanted to do. Mike Tomlin wanted to keep him. Now you bring in Todd Haley, who's basically related to the Rooneys. The general manager who built the 70s Steelers was his dad. Dick Haley, he was a former ball boy for the Steelers. That's as close as he ever got to football. And Big Ben right now is because if Bill Cowher was the head coach right now, no knock against Coach Tomlin, but if Bill Cowher was the head coach right now, number one, I'm not sure Ben would still be on the team after what happened in Milledge, Georgia. I'm not too sure. But if he was on the team right now, Bill Cowher would pull Haley and Big Ben in a room right now, and they would work it out. They would talk and work the whole thing out. Big Ben says he was going to talk to Art Rooney II. That hasn't happened. He said he was going to talk to Kurt Warner. He hasn't called Kurt Warner yet. But
why does he want to call Kurt Warner? I missed that one.
Well, Kurt Warner was the quarterback at Arizona when Todd Haley was the quote-unquote offensive coordinator, but the offensive coordinator was Ken Wisenhunt. That's who did it. Just like the offensive coordinator in Kansas City when they were effective was Charlie Weiss. He couldn't get along with Haley, so he quit and went back to college. Haley took over the offensive coordinator this year at Kansas City and got fired.
Jim, you're the best.
Thanks, man.
You covered everything there. You handled the pit. Couldn't agree with you more with that. The rebounding, the front line, all that other stuff, and the McDonald's All-American. No, it is strange that you have an All-American, McDonald's All-American kid like that who's underachieved.
And for all you Jamie Dixon lovers, you know, I was the Ben Howland guy. But for all you Jamie Dixon lovers, don't forget that he lost a few of the coaches that had the stranglehold on recruiting in New York. You look at the recruits down in the last 3 or 4 years, they've been getting weaker and weaker because Jamie Dixon lost his assistant coaches who were bringing in those great recruits.
And also, you know, with Pitt leaving the Big East, you know, they've got that negotiated. You know, these kids that play New York City ball, playing in the Garden, that's their dream, you know. And you know, and you know, and that leads me to WVU. WVU has opted out of the Big East, and they've settled their dispute, so they're gone. So, you know, WVU is going their way, and Pitt's going to be going their way. And I think college football and college basketball is going to be losing one of the great rivalries. You know, Pitt and West Virginia. You know, when they've done all this conference shifting, you know, there's certain games like Alabama, Auburn, Ohio State, Michigan, you know, and I know back in the late 70s and the early 80s it was Pitt and Penn State, but Pitt and West Virginia have been consistent, bitter rivals for the last 100 years, and to think that these two teams are not going to play each other anymore, I think college basketball and football fans lose out on this, and really what does college football and basketball gain by this? And I think they shot themselves in the foot, to be honest with you.
Well, then maybe watch the last backroom brawl Thursday night. It'll be at home at Pitt. They already beat them at their homes, so we'll have to see what happens. But it's interesting with the settlement. I saw it was $11 million that West Virginia pays, and the other 9 teams pay $1 million each. So it shows you how these conferences must be pulling in a lot of money, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that, you know,
well,
that's where we're at
I mean,
there.
and it's all about football because, you know, football is the big money revenue generator in college sports, and they're trying to make these super conferences so that they can get all the network television revenue and you know, get themselves that prized BCS chit. And I think that you know, that the Big East should have never been given an automatic bid, and I think that damaged the BCS, and that thing has got to be completely revamped to make it worth watching anymore.
No doubt. Well, to change gears a little bit, since my man's wearing Urban Meyer's hat there, what do you think about the Ohio State team with getting a few of the players that were going to Penn State? He grabbed those players. What's their football team going to be like while they're still not going to be bowl eligible? Well, are they going to be competitive?
Just to finish up on the backyard brawl, you know, I've never been a Bob Huggins fan, even though he's an intense coach. You know, this is a guy that never met a bottle that he didn't like. He never graduated any players when he was at the University of Cincinnati. And when he was a great guard for West Virginia University during his play days, he purposely took out B.B. Flannery, an icon from here in Western Pennsylvania, on the layout, took his legs out, and BB had a true concussion, and that kind of almost ended his collegiate career. But listen, you got Urban Meyers, who's a living legend in coaching. He's going to get who he wants. You got O'Brien. The only thing that O'Brien did at Penn State, the only thing he's known for is getting in Tom Brady's face. You know, why would you do something like that? But, you know, O'Brien is an arrogant guy, just like Charlie Weiss. All those guys that come up under Belichick, first thing O'Brien said is, I'm happy with the recruits we got, which is like maybe a top 50 recruiting class. But when people see our offense, they're going to want to come to Penn State. The same thing Charlie White said at Notre Dame before they bounced him out of there for being an inferior coach. But listen, Urban Meyer's is a winner. He's going to win. He knows how to get the recruits. He got a great system. And I think that, hey, listen, until you sign, it's a cutthroat business. Until you sign in February, all those guys, you know, your verbal is nothing until the ink is dry. And Urban Meyer, this is just the tip of the iceberg. He can get in almost any recruit he wants.
Is he going to get a Tebow-like guy for quarterback then?
Well, don't forget.
What are your insights there?
Well, he don't need a Tebow-type guy because they only come along once in a lifetime. But don't forget, he was undefeated with Alex Smith at Utah, and they put a beating on the University of Pittsburgh and Walt Harris, and Alex Smith was the first pick overall, something that Tebow didn't do. So Urban Meyer wasn't just a great coach when he got to Florida. He had an undefeated Utah team that should have been national champs, but they wasn't going to give Utah the national championship. But if anybody go back and watch that film, and don't forget, Alex Smith probably played in the greatest dream backfield in the history of high school. In his high school, he used to pitch the ball back to a star tailback named Reggie Bush.
No way. No doubt. That's great stuff.
Bit of information.
Oh, thank you.
We're trying to pick his brain. Well, then here, we got to go to Pitt before I let the college level go here with the Pitt football team. What do you think's going to happen here with Russell Shell and other guys like that? Chip, you want to chime in there?
It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Pitt football program. I think I hope Russell Shell performs the way that he can, but he's walking into a completely messed up situation. I mean, with what they did with the dismissal of Wanstead and then the disaster of Todd Graham. The new coach has got to try to put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
Right. Well, then what about Ray Graham? Is he going to stay around? Is he going to stay another year then and get healthy? Ray Graham with the surgery and fixing his knee. Will he stay then this year?
He has no choice as he goes to the CFL because he didn't.
Right. I know
he's going to the NFL.
Well, that's
so
why
he's
I'm asking.
Back.
Right.
But if it's a 12-month ACL injury for Spending-Hall, it's going to be a 12 months for Graham, and Graham may have to be healthy to beat out the kid from Hopewell. But I'm a big believer in college football and the strength coach. When Pitt was great, they had a strength coach named Buddy Morse. Okay. You get a great strength coach in college football, that can help you get to another level. So I'm interested to see who Pitt hires as a strength coach. You get a good strength coach, and you can develop these guys. You get these. Hey, you grow from the time you're 17 to you're 21. You're naturally still growing. So you get a strength coach in there, man. You can get some monsters, and that's what Pitt used to do under Buddy Morse. And they had some of the greatest offensive linemen and grow up and become men at the University of Pittsburgh. I like to see that again.
The Hall of Fame is littered with them.
Yes, sir.
In the NFL. There's another subject we mentioned Penn State, and I read something in the paper that kind of disturbed me, and this goes back again to this scandal, and it doesn't have anything to do with Jerry Sandusky.
Wow.
Tim Curley is one of the people that Joe Paterno
reported.
What was told to him by Mike McQuarrie was reported. He reported to Joe. Joe reported it to Tim Curley. Okay.
Right.
Now that Joe Paterno has passed away, his attorneys have filed paperwork to throw the charges against him because you need a corroborating witness to prove the fact that the chain of events happened. And I cannot believe that this man would do that and further tarnish Joe Paterno's image. And I don't know how he can not end up having some kind of repercussions. But it just blows my mind that, Joe's not here to say that he told me or what he told me, and, we've got no way of knowing this. And I just think that's a slap in the face to the University of Penn State and to the memory of Joe Paterno, and it just appalls me.
Well, that's why even Smoking Jim's friend Franco Harris, who he compared me to him, that saying how Joe was mistreated and taken out, the more people you talk, even people that aren't Penn State alumni and things like that, it does seem a lot more suspicious about that. on how he was treated. And
Curly needs to just say, you know what, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, and admit his culpability there. You know, he didn't enable to. He didn't. Do the things that are alleged that Jerry Sandusky has done. But yes, he was a cog in the machinery that didn't allow this to come to light when it could have 8 or 10 years ago. So I mean, to just try to
get out in a sleazy way.
And attorneys never cease to amaze me.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Governor Corbett gets out of a lot of this stuff too. And I said the day that Joe Paterno passed away, and God rest his soul, is that I thought that strengthened Jerry Sandusky's case. You know, of course, I'm on record as saying I hope that he's innocent. I hope that never happened. But with Joe Paterno passing away, I thought that was going to hurt. That was going to help Sandusky, because that was one less,
witness,
witness
testimony.
Yeah,
and we'll see that will play out in the courts, but I mean, just the thought that somebody was like, well, now that Joe is gone and he can't testify against me, well then, geez, you can drop my case because your prime witness is not here to testify.
Right.
And that's the lowest of the
Well, that's why I have suspicions that this could go deeper. When you start having administrators and their lawyers playing all these shenanigans out there, I do have a distrust for that, because it seems like they're manipulating the information, everything that goes out. Especially with people that should have made decisions that could have changed all this and nipped it in the bud. But I do want to change up. I missed a death, since a lot of these things are following me around. Angelo Dundee.
Yes.
Passed away.
Yes.
And I wanted to have a little discussion about that, on what a legendary guy he was with the fighters he had.
Oh, jeez, he was a walking history lesson in boxing. I mean, he took Cassius Clay, from being an Olympic champion into being a world champion, and what he contributed to the sport of boxing. I don't think there's another person that could sit there and say that they've done nearly as much.
And I tell you what, and like you always say, Al, death goes by three. So you had Joe Paterno, Angelo Dundee, and Whitney Houston all pass away, relatively a few months from each other. But, Angelo Dundee is, don't forget, he had Sugar Ray Leonard. He helped him, get back and beat Roberto Duran, who was considered the Hands of Stone and unbeatable at the time, and go down in history as one of the all-time greats. Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, going down in history as the greatest of one of the all-time greats. So Angelo Dundee was just that guy. I mean, he was. But certain guys like Angelo Dundee and Joe Paterno, you don't ever think of them getting old or ever dying. And
Great point.
So it was shocking. But here's how tough that guy was. 2 weeks before he died, he went to Muhammad Ali's 70th birthday party. Wow. Some guys are just tough.
And Angelo Dundee was 90.
Yeah.
I believe he was 90 years old. And, Jim mentioned, about the unfortunate passing of Whitney Houston. And, I know this is a sports program, and people may wonder, how does this have anything to do with sports? But back in 1991, she did one of the most amazing renditions of the national anthem after the American troops came back from the original Desert Storm, and if there is an American that wasn't touched by that rendition when the Giants were playing the Bills in the Super Bowl, that was one of the most amazing moments, and that's where the sports connection with that is, and we're truly going to miss her.
And you bring that up, the day of the Super Bowl, I'm listening in the car, and they played a rendition of that song, and I had chills on me, and like you said, it touched me. I know it touched at the time all the Americans, and the thing that hurt her is when Bobby Brown touched her.
Yeah.
In the wrong way, many times. And we know that. And it's a shame that great talents sometimes go to extremes with other things that are dangerous for them. And her voice was just magical. We all agree with that. There's no doubt about it. where else do you want to go? We've covered so many subjects there. I'm trying to think what else we
Randy
missed.
Moss may be coming back, baby.
That leads me to ask this question. I mean, if you're a head coach of a football team, Randy Moss, if he has his head screwed on straight, he's unparalleled as a wide receiver, okay? But, the last few teams that he's gone to, he's been poisoned. I wouldn't want him on my team for what he could offer me short term. I think the poison that he'd inflict upon my team long term would far outweigh his benefits.
Are you putting him in the same category as Terrell Owens?
Absolutely.
Ocho Cinco?
Absolutely. Somebody that's going to tell you that he's going to play when he feels like playing. Somebody that's going to berate the caterer because he doesn't like what they're serving him in front of his teammates. Is that a positive influence in the locker room? I don't believe so.
You can't argue with some logic like that. So I guess the Steelers aren't going to pick him up.
Well, I think the only team that Randy Moss could still be productive for, one of the few teams, would be the New England Patriots. It broke his heart when he left New England. I think that him and Brady, the chemistry was great. I think Belichick had him under control, but you gotta be careful. You gotta have a New England, a Belichick, a Brady type situation because if Randy Moss wasn't seeing a lot of footballs at New England, but he was seeing a deep ball for a touchdown, so that pacified him. You go somewhere else where they're not looking for him. And like you said, when you finally do look for him, he may be sitting on a bench.
He did that many times. And then look how childish he was with different penalties and things, taking penalties.
And that's the shame about players like Terrell Owens and Randy Moss, is that they were such amazingly talented athletes. And, they wasted a lot of time and energy on being, fools, instead of really utilizing their talents. And I mean, I think either one of them, if they would have applied themselves, could have tried to challenge Jerry Rice's records, which I personally think are so far out there that nobody's going to touch them. But I think those two were talented enough that they could have. But, they chose the path they wanted to take.
Well, it's interesting how you bring up Jerry Rice, but we talk about Hines Ward. Will he play for another team? Look at Jerry Rice did that. Didn't he play for 3 other teams or something like that?
The Raiders.
Right.
Yeah.
And he did think he could keep playing, and then finally, I forget what team it was with, but he would have been like a 4th or 5th receiver, like Smoking Jim talks about Hines or worse, and he decided not to play that year. But I forget whether it was with Oakland or somebody else that happened to him. So these players are the talent that they have. They look at these other guys and still think they can play. And that just made me think that here's Randy Moss thinking he can work harder and catch these balls, and maybe he can go back to New England and do that. But it might not even be reality.
But that's one of the things they say about these athletes that perform. Usually it's the athlete himself is the last person that knows that it's his time, I think Brett Favre was a perfect example of that. The first year he played in Minnesota, he should have walked out on that note because, he was on a high. And the way he performed this final year in Minnesota, he looked like a beaten old man come the end of that season. And he did get beat up pretty good. I know he got bounced off the turf once that caused him to, end his streak. But, these players, they need the juice. And, they don't know when to turn it off.
Brett Favre came back and got that 500 touchdown catch.
Another stat man. I watched those
stat. Do you know who dropped his first 500th touchdown pass?
No, who?
A guy named Hank Baskett.
Who
happened to marry the playmate. What was her name? Oh, geez, I can't remember.
Chip's got some nice inside info.
He was playing for the Vikings, and he's 500 touchdown. Hank Baskett has it in his hands. He's also the guy that fumbled the onside kick when the Saints played the Colts.
Well, I just know who caught the 500 catch as Randy Moss.
You're getting the insight. The prophet come out of here. It wasn't a prediction, but he gave us some facts there.
Useless as they may be.
No, we appreciate trivia and all that type of stuff. But again, if people are interested in our show, 412-831-3304, you can call us, talk to us live, or go to PittsburghSportsline.com, or go on YouTube, which I hear a lot of people are doing that. We even have a family out, John and Judy Sig, out in Penn Hills. She was a Spanish teacher. They're watching my show, and you guys here with us, saying what a great show it is. And we're just about ready to wrap it up here. I got the word. Hey, thanks again for watching our show. Hope to see you next week. Keep Mike in your prayers. Hats off to Smoking Jim Frazier and Chip the Prophet Hayner here. And I'm Al Levine, the Talking Machine. See you next week.